Advaitam Savadutam Parijana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Dalita Shri Vishakan Vitamshcha Om Agyantam Mirandasya Giranjana Shalakaya Chakshurumalitamina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishnam Stapitamina Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Janmadhyasa Yatun Vayadi Taratash Tartesh Rabhigyaswarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye Muhyanti Yasurayaha Tejo Vari Mridam Yatavini Mayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Dhamna Swena Sadana Rastakokam Satyam Param Dhimahi. Okay, so Yamaraj is continuing his teachings on Bhagavad Dharma. In the last passage we read, the concluding part of the passage was that hardly anyone is knowing the true Dharma, the Dharma that transcends the gunas of Prakriti, but it is known by a few. The Mahajanas, well, there are 12 of them, great souls, who know that Dharma. Otherwise, no one is actually in this world familiar with it or able to embrace that Dharma, generally speaking. So Yamadutas may say, so what is that Dharma? Teach us. Teach us what is that true Dharma, the Dharma that is beyond the gunas of Prakriti. So he gives a few teachings on that. And then he concludes his discussion with the Yamadutas. So we're on verse 22 to 30. That's where, that's the end of Yamaraj speaking to the Yamadutas. So here, famous verse, Etavaneva lokesmin kungsa dharma parashmita. Bhakti yoga bhagavati ta nama grahanadi bihi. So what is that true Dharma? Well, that true Dharma, Paradharma, is Bhakti Yoga. Etevan eva lokesmin pumsa dharma parashmita. So the Paradharma for all mankind is certainly Bhakti Yoga Bhagavati, devotion to the Supreme Lord, Tan Nama Grahanadibi, which begins with chanting of the name, etc. So, Nam, Smarnam, Shravanam, and so on. Tanama Grahanadibi. Translation: devotional service beginning with the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is the ultimate religious principles for the living entity in human society. Our acharyas naturally make reference to the opening statement of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Dharma projita kaitavat atra paramo nirmat sarana satam. That verse says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Paradharma will be illuminated and cheating Dharma will be kicked out. So cheating Dharma means the Dharma belonging to the three gunas of Prakriti. And the Paradharma, the transcendental Dharma, is Bhakti Yoga. Savai pungsam paro dharma yato bhakti radokshaje. Ahetuki apratiyataya yatmasu prasidati. This verse is also quoted by our acharyas. Chanakya Rishi had asked a question, what is the prayojana? And also what is the means to its attainment, known as the Paradharma. So in reply to that, the Sutta Goswami says, Savai Pungsa Paradharma, the Paradharma for all humans, is that Dharma by which Bhakti Yoga can be achieved. So Bhakti Yoga, there is the Prayojana. And the Paradharma by which that Bhakti Yoga can be achieved, there's also Bhakti Yoga. So Bhakti Yoga as sadhana and Bhakti Yoga as sadhya. So that is the answer to the first two questions of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that Paradharma, the abhideya, by which the prayojana of prema can be achieved, begins with ta nama grahanadibi, beginning with chanting of the names of the Lord, Bhagavati ta nama grahanad adibihi. So hearing chanting, remembering the Lord, it begins with chanting of the name. Here, chanting, of course, is singled out because of the incident with Ajamila, who chanted the names of the Lord. So he was a person who practiced and exhibited this Paradharma. So that is the next verse. On the next verse, Namo Charana Mahatmyam Hari Pashita Putrakaha. So, O my sons, Putrakaha, Pashita, just see. Nama Ucharana Mahatmyam Hari. Just see the glories of chanting the names of Hari. So you don't have to look far. In his previous statement, he said the Paradharma is Bhakti Yoga beginning with chanting. So someone, where's the evidence? What need for evidence? You saw with your own two eyes. You saw with your own two eyes the result of this Paradharma. Ajamelo api, even this Ajamela, Yena Eva, by this chanting, certainly, Mritu Pashara Muchita was able to free himself from the ropes of death. So what evidence you need? You came with the ropes of death to drag him to Narakaloka, hell. And by that chanting, he was able to free himself from that chastisement. So you don't need any evidence. Or you don't need any evidence beyond this. Pratyaksha Praman. With direct sense perception, you got the chance to see the glories of the holy name of the Lord, the glories of this supreme Dharma, which is beyond the gunas. So no need for evidence aside from this. As it is said, seeing is believing. So you saw with your own two eyes. Okay, next verse. So teaching about it. Etavatalam aganya haranaya sankirtanam bhagavato guna karma namnam. So by Sankirtan of the Guna Karma Namnam, the name, activities, and qualities of the Supreme Lord, Sankirtanam Bhagavato, Guna Karma Namnam, then Pungsam humans, they're able to Agha Nirahanaya. They can free themselves from the reactions of sinful activity. So the word Sankirtana means samyak kirtan. So samyak means complete kirtan. So complete kirtan is kirtan done in the association of sadhu. So it is called sankirtan, congregational chanting. And samyak kirtan also, it becomes complete when done with sambandha, right? With relationship. Of course, we can say sambandha gyan. That is how we usually say. That is easier. Sambandha gyan. You have the proper conceptual orientation toward God. But also it may be better to also say sometimes just the word sambandha. You chant with that relationship in mind, the relationship with Krishna. As Krishna says in Gita, he reciprocates according to the nature of the approach. So if you approach in accordance with the spirit of relationship in which you approach Krishna, he reciprocates in kind. So the samyak kirtan means also doing kirtan with that sambandha. You can say sambandha gyan also or sambandha. But actually, etavata alam, even this much is sufficient. Just saying the name, even that is sufficient. So that is the meaning of alam here, according to our acharyas. And I'll read from Prabhupada's purport this section that describes alam. Otherwise, normally it says there should be Sankirtan, Bhagavato Guna Karma Nama. There should be Sankirtan of the Guna Karma Nama of the Lord. So that means it should be done with relationship, Sambandha Gyan at least. And that will destroy the sin. But actually, just saying the name of God, even without Sambandha, even without the congregational support, let's say, even just saying the name of the Lord, this is sufficient. In other words, Namabas, which was done by Ajamil, even this is sufficient. To Agha Nirahanaya, to give the freedom from sin. Prabhupada writes here, the word alam, which is used in this verse, indicates that simply uttering the holy name of the Lord is sufficient. This word is used with different imports, as stated in the Amara Kosha, the most authorized dictionary in the Sanskrit language. Alam bhushana paryapti shakti bharana vachakam. The word alam is used to mean ornament, sufficiency, power, and restraint. Here, the word alam is used to indicate that there is no need of any other process, for the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is sufficient. Even if one chants imperfectly, one becomes free from all sinful reactions by chanting. So even if there isn't samyak kirtan, just the name is vibrated, that is sufficient. Vikrusha putram agavanya ajamilopi. So Ajamila api, even this Ajamil, he vikrusha putram, he was crying out for his son. So not even indicating Supreme Lord crying out for his son. What to speak of if he was crying out for the Supreme Lord? So this last line is the Kaimutya Nyaya principle that we've already encountered so much in this past time. Vikrusha putram, he was just crying out to his son. What to speak of crying out for the Lord? Agavan, he was fully sinful, replete with sin. Still, by the Namabas, he was able to gain such a result. Agha at least that one. He was Agavan, so what to speak of being pure, Shuddha? If he was Agavan and got such a result, what would be the result if you were Shuddha? Mriyamana, Narayaneti Mriyamana Iyaya Mukta. So Mriyamana means at the time of death, he was dying. And our Acharyas, Prabhupada also points out that when you're dying, your mind will be disturbed, as you can imagine. Death is not a very pleasing experience. Therefore, it is bewildering to even the learned, vidusha api. One of the kleshas is abhinivesh, which basically means the fear of death, bewildering even to the learned, even to those who are situated in great knowledge. This death is bewildering. So your mind will be disturbed at the time of death. So Mriyamana, at the time of death, he chanted, got such a wonderful result. What to speak of with mind concentrated, what sort of result you will get? With mind disturbed, he got a result. What to speak of with concentrated mind? And Iyaya Muktam, he achieved liberation, not only the destruction of sin, but he actually achieved liberation. So such is the glories of the holy names of the Supreme Lord. And in the commentaries, so many verses are glorified are mentioned in glorification of the holy name of the Supreme Lord. So basically, one should do this nam bhajan. Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtana. There should be nam bhajan, nam sankirtan, especially in this age of Kali. So Prabhupada, I think toward the end, he writes, no, it's not. Maybe it's in another purport. Anyway, there was a statement. I can't find it. I thought it was in this purport. Yeah, it is. Prabhupada writes here. It should be concluded that with a strong vow, one should chant the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. For thus one will certainly be delivered from the clutches of Maya by the grace of Krishna. So we should take strong vow to do Harinam Sankirtan. That's what the conclusion. If you hear these glories of the Paradharma, characterized specifically here by chanting the holy name, then one should embrace it. That is intelligence. What is that verse? Krishna Varnam Trisha Krishna Sangopangashtra Parshanam. Jagna Sankirtana Prayar Yujanti Sumera Saha. So in this age of Kali, generally, people with the Sumeda, who are great intelligence, generally they do the yagya of Sankirtana to worship that Jagya Purusha, who is Krishna Varnam Trisha Krishna, who is Krishna Varna. His color is Krishna. That is one meaning of Krishna Varna. Trisha Krishna, but externally he is not black. Internally he is black, but externally he is not black because he is golden color. And he is descended with his Sangha Upanga Ashtra Parshadam. So his Sangha, of course, means, Sangha means Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Charya because they're in the category of God. Is Upanga. Upanga means the Bhaktas like Srivas Thakur, Haridas Thakur, and others. And his Astra is the holy name, of course, and Parshadam. His intimate associates are Gadadhar Pandit, Ramananda Rai, Saru Damodar. So he's descended, this Yagya Purusha is descended with these persons. So we have Sumeda. If we're very intelligent, then we should embrace this Sankirtan Yagya, especially in the age of Kali. That is the purpose of all these teachings, to give us faith in the holy name of Krishna and its power and its glory. Okay, so next verse. If this paradharma is so wonderful, how come learned people don't teach this? Learned people here means people who compile shastras. Prabhupada's putting like Jaimini and others who compile shastras dealing with karma yoga, karma mimamsa, karma kanda, like this sort of stuff. They're very learned persons, but they're absorbed in the dharma of the three gunas, the dharma related to the three gunas generally. So why they don't teach this thing? Someone may, the Yamadas may ask, how come this paradharma is so glorious and so wonderful and also easily to execute? There's no difficulty in it. So how come they don't teach this thing? Prayena Veda Taridham Namahajanoyam Devyavi Mohita Matir Batamaya Yalam. So the Mahajana here, so this word Mahajana is also used. So Mahajana, just the word Jana just means people, and Maha means great. So like the great people, the great personalities. So the Mahajanas, previously there were 12 Mahajanas. So the 12 Mahajanas who knew Paradharma. But here the word Mahajana is used a little bit more generically. It's a great learned person like Jaimini and others. So aside from the 12 Mahajanas mentioned earlier, these other Mahajanas who are compilers of Shastras, I think in Prabhupada's translation, like Yagya, Valka, and Jaimini and others, they're dealing with Karma Kanda section. So Prayena Veda Taridham, Na Mahajanoyam. Generally, they do not know this paradharma. Why not? Devyavi mohitamatir batamaya yalam. Because their minds are bewildered by powerful maya. Vimohitamati. Vimohitamati means the intelligence is bewildered by Devya bhattamaya yalam, by very powerful maya. Maya Shakti, as we've heard many times in our discussions, has two divisions, Avharana and Vikshepana. Avharana is also called the Jiva Maya. So it actually covers awareness of the true nature of the self. And after you recover, then Guna Maya attack, Vikshepana, creates bewilderment by giving the bodies and the products of the gunas, and we get all preoccupied with that. Just like when you go on your phone, for example, you go on the phone to check the weather, and then you open some other application, you get absorbed in that, and you forgot that you went to check the weather. Then you close the phone finally after 10, 15 minutes. Then you again, oh, I went to check the weather. Again, you open it. So like that, one forgets oneself and gets absorbed in the other reality, a so-called second reality apart from God. So this happens to even greatly learned persons, high level sattva-guna. Devyavi mohitamatir bhattamaya yalam. They generally don't teach this paradharma because they themselves are occupied in the dharma related to three gunas. Even devotees today, for example, I wonder if this is a parallel. I don't know if this exactly fits. But even devotees today, they may feel that, oh, this bhakti yoga does not help people practically. And I've heard this from many. People are struggling with mind in so many ways. So they need to hear principles of psychology also. So yeah, there will also be discussion of paradharma, but as some principle that helps with the mind. And we will speak so many other things also that helps with the mind, which are very practical for people. So then what happens is sometimes, with good intentions, someone may get into that. And then it begins to outpace the bhakti part. I've seen that on a couple of occasions. So I'm not saying it is always the case, but I've seen on a couple of occasions that this may happen. That it outpaces. You just get into it, and this thing helps, and start traveling to this seminar, that seminar, going to this TED talk and the other one, and recommending it to devotees, this book, that book, and so on. And eventually just starts outpacing the bhakti yoga part. All the while one thinks this is favorable to one's bhakti. So anyway, that's a parallel example. I don't know if it's exactly the same. It's a parallel. The idea here is that Maya very strong, bewildering the intelligence. She's been doing it since time immemorial, beginningless time, bewildering the jivas. So generally these learned persons, they also bewildered by Maya. So they don't teach this paradharma. That's what he's saying. I think Prabhupada is also quoting from Prahlad Maharaj's teaching. And does he quote here from Prahlad Maharaj? I want to say that he does. You know, when Prahlad tells his father that you'll not become Krishna conscious, don't worry, because neither by yourself or by others, Matirna Krishna, Parata, Swatova. Parata means by others also, you'll not become Krishna conscious. So the others, there were his teachers, Shanda and Amarka. So they were Brahmanas. They're greatly learned in Shastra, dealing with three gunas. So Hiranyakashipu may say, what are you saying that these Brahmanas are so learned persons? And you're criticizing, saying they cannot teach. So then Prahlad, in response to that hypothetical objection of his father, Nate vidu svartagatanhi Vishnu, darashraya bahirartamanina. Prabhupada quotes it in one of these purports. That's why I'm remembering that particular verse. Nate vidu, they don't know. They also don't know. Nate vidu svartagatanhi Vishnu. This microphone is busted. They don't know. Let's see, make sure. Hold on, I'm having technical difficulties. They also don't know. Something wrong with my computer. So as usual, apologies. They also don't know that Vishnu is the real goal of self-interest, because they're absorbed in dharma related to three gunas, trigunya vishaya veda. So they also don't know. Darashaye bahirartamanina, they have bad hearts. Bad heart here means heart absorbed in gunas of prakriti. Bahirartamanina, they taking the external objects very seriously. Yatan dar upaniyamanas tepisha tantara uridhamni bada. So if you hear from them, they're a blind man, and you are also a blind man. So it's like a blind man leading another blind man into the ditch. Tepisa tantra urudhamni bhada. They remain bound by the strong cords of the gunas of prakriti in this way. So even greatly learned persons, they are also bewildered by prakriti. That's why devotees don't give too much value. Of course, for PR stuff, we may say, oh, you are a very great person. And just like Prabhupada is fond of quoting, who is that? Prabodhananda Saraswati. I think this comes in Chaitanya Chandramrita. One verse is there where Prabodhananda Saraswati is glorifying the learned person. You are so learned in this, that, and the other thing. But kindly forget everything that you know and please worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Right. So we may say for PR work, you are this, you are that, you're very nice, you're very learned. But actually, you are Devya Vimohita Matir Batamaya Yala. You're bewildered by Maya also. Trayam Jadi Kritamatir Madhupushpitayam Vitang Nike Mahati Karmaniyu Gyamana. So this is describing these bewildered persons. They're engaged in the great fruitive activities that are mentioned in the Vedas. Vaitani ke Maharati Karmana Yugyamana. I don't know what these activities are. I think Prabhupada must have mentioned some type of specific yagyas are there, but they're very pompous in nature. You know, some huge yagya will be there, so many brahmanas. It's like a huge event. You can imagine a lot of hard work, this, that, and the other is undertaken. And they're engaged in that work. Just as Krishna described these people also in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, verse 42, 43. Uh, they're interested, being possessed by the lust. They're engaged in these pompous, fruitive activities for bhoga and aishwarya, and to get swarga, to get nice birth, nice family, etc., etc. So they engage in all the. If you say chant Hare Krishna, they what is this? And chanting Hare Krishna, and become disappointed. But to do some big yagya, they're ready to undertake. Just like I always would give joke about this in Chicago, there was a period where people were coming to our temple for the car puja because we had three pujaris who were a little bit. They were a little bit. I don't want to say it. I don't mean this too critical, but just as a matter of fact, they're a little bit like cricket and making money, doing a little bit of cheating, and they would advertise for these car pujas. So Hindus are very naive. They would come for the car puja. So one time I accidentally intercepted one of the persons. They say, hey, come here for car puja. So I said, listen, take this mala and you can circumambulate the car and chant Hare Krishna. But they were very disappointed in that. They wanted some coconut to be cracked, some banana with some fire should be there. So unless all that was there, they were not satisfied with just chanting Hare Krishna. Only once or twice where I suggested that. I've shared one story once here. That works, where someone took me seriously. Otherwise, they would be very disappointed. Where's the coconut cracking? Where's the fire? Where's the banana? So then they would get the other guy. And one devotee charged $800 also for one of these car pujas. So one caller simple, very disappointed. So they like this thing. Vetani ke mahati karmana yugyamana. Why? Trayanja dikrita madhu pushpitaya. Because the Vedas is having these flowers of honey, madhu pushpitaya. And the flowery language is there advertising. If you do this yoga, you get this result. You do that yoga, you get this result. It's very attractive. So you get into it. Trayanja dikrita matir. And your intelligence becomes jada. It becomes dulled by absorbing in these three Vedas, dealing with karma, basically. Jadikritimati. Just like now, because of digital media, human intelligence become very dull. So people are being able to less and less do their own thing, like build things, make music. It's becoming less and less a thing. They cannot do things without the support of the technology, and the intelligence becoming dull. We always give an example. When we were growing up, we had to actually remember numbers. There was no phone. What do you call it? Phone, saver. It wouldn't save the number. So there was at one point, I swear I must have remembered at least 50 to 100 numbers off the top of my head. When I was in high school, I deliberately remember, maybe not such a huge number, but a pretty big number of numbers I used to remember off the top of my head. Part of it was probably my chess training also, where you have to remember positions from the top of your head and, drilling the intelligence that way. Now I only know my number and my mom's number by heart. Only two numbers. And even when I'm looking at some number and trying to remember it, as soon as I look away, I forget again. I have to look. So it's called jadikitamati, the intelligence becoming dull. You keep engaging with the sense objects, you become like the sense object, jada, dull or cold. So this is what happens to these people. They get bewildered. So they cannot understand this dharma. Prayena veda taridam namahajanoya. Generally, they don't understand this paradharma. That's what he wants to say here. So even these learned persons, generally, they don't understand. So that is why they're not teaching. Otherwise, they would teach. Prabhupada in the purport has talked about the opening of the Krishna Balaram Mandir. It's kind of a famous purport where he had invited all these brahmanas to do the, pran pratishtha, all these different ceremonies for the deity, because he said people in India would not accept that the temple was authorized unless they went through all these various yagyas. So he said on one side were all these Vedic brahmanas doing the various things, and then on the other side were the devotees doing Sankirtan. And Prabhupada says, I consider the Sankirtan more important than the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. Both ceremonies and the Sankirtan were going on simultaneously. The ceremonies were meant for persons interested in Vedic rituals, for elevation to heavenly planets, whereas the Sankirtan was meant for pure devotees interested in pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We would simply have performed Sankirtan, but then the inhabitants of Vrindavan would not have taken the installation ceremony seriously. So it's a kind of famous purport here. Okay, next verse. So he's telling, therefore, giving conclusion here. Evam Vermishra. So therefore, considering all this, Sudhiyo Bhagavat Yanante Sarvatmana Vidhate Kalubhava Yoga. So those who have taken to Bhava Yoga, means Bhakti Yoga, characterized by chanting holy name and so on. Sarvatmana. Sarvatmana means with their everything, their mind, their intelligence, their body, their speech. These three specifically, mind, body, speech. Those is meaning of Sarvatmana. So that means no portion of them is thinking about something like karma kanda. Their mind is on the name, their speech is on the name, their body is serving the name, etc., doing bhakti yoga. So these people are called Sudhyo. Sudhyo. Sudhyo means they have good intelligence, like Sumedha Saha, I just quoted earlier. So they've taken to this bhakti yoga with their everything. They have discernment, Sudhya, the ability to discern, sharp intelligence. Discern what? The Tri Gunya Visha Veda, Nisrai Gunya Bhavarjana. They can distinguish between the Guna Dharma and the Pada Dharma, not as many of Sudhyo. Having discerned, they embrace the right thing, this Bhava Yoga. So, Te Merna Dandam Arhanti. So don't bring them, they don't deserve my punishment. Do not bring them to me, these sorts of people. Ata yadhi amisham sat pata kamta apihan turughayavada. Even if they do sin, so yadi amisham sat pata kam tarapi hanti. Tarapi, even if they do the sinful activity, these devotees, Hanti, that is destroy Urughayavada by their chanting of the holy names of the Supreme Lord. So they're not fit to be punished. Don't bring them to me. That's his point here. This is a conclusion. Okay, in the purport, Sri Vishnu and Prabhupada is following his commentary mostly. He calls this nice verse, Atapi te deva padambuja dhaya prasadalesha anugranita evahi. Janati tatvam bhagavam no nachanya eko pucharam vichinva. This verse is quoted to contrast the so-called learned who don't do paradharma and the devotees. So it says here, if one receives even a prashadalesha, just like a fragment of the Lord's mercy, anugranita evahi, then janati tatvam bhagavam mahimna, then they can understand the bhagavam mahimna. They know the glories of God if they get a little bit of his mercy. Just verses spoken by Brahma to Krishna. He was seeing Krishna hold yoga rice in the left hand. So he's like, this can't be God. No way. Then he tried to do his mystic power on him and he got dealt with. So he that getting dealt with was the mercy of the Lord. So then he was able to understand the Lord's glory. Nachanya eko api chiram vichimvan. This is not known by persons who study the Vedas even for hundreds of years. This last line. So the idea here of this verse is that even the learned studying Vedas, they do not know the Bhagavan Mahimna. But someone who has received just a tiny fragment of mercy from the Lord, they can know. So even a insignificant ignoramus who receives mercy of God, that's coming through the doorway of bhaktas, as we've heard so many times, they can understand God, the Bhagavan Mahimna. Janati Tatvam Bhagavan. But these learned person in Vedas, they cannot understand the glory of God. So they do not become Sudhyo. They're described previous verse already as Jadi Kritamati, dull intelligence, because too much spending time with the three Vedas. So yeah, these persons can understand, but someone who receives mercy, they can understand. They become Sudhyo. They take to Bhakti Yoga with their everything. Those persons are not to be punished. Even if they do sin, that sin will be destroyed by their chanting. So this is a contrast between learned scholars of Vedas and the devotees. Okay. So some of the final statements here. These devotees, they, so the devotees that have been discussed here, te deva siddha parigita vitragata, their stories are, their pure stories are sung by the devas and siddhas. Who? Those, ye sadhava samadrisho bhagava pramana. Those who are surrendered to the Lord, they are samadrisha, means they see with equal vision, seeing the happiness and distress of others as their own. Sadhava means they have good behavior. So these devotees are very wonderful, obviously. Tano pasiddhata hare gadayabhigutam. So don't go near them. Not upasiddhata. Don't go near them. Why? Because Hari gadayabhigutam. They're protected by the club of Hari. So the idea is if you go near them, Hari with his club will come and give you a good bashing or thrashing. I don't know which word is the best word here. He's carrying the club, he'll give you a good thrash. What to speak of you people? Naishamvayam, Nachavaya, Prabhavama Dhande. Even we means like Brahma and Yamaraj himself and others. Even we, Nachavaya, and even time itself are not having power to chastise these devotees. What to speak of you, Yamadu, even we can. We'll also get that Gada. Lord is carrying Gada. He'll chastise us also. Like the Rasmuni got good practical experience of that. So don't go to them, these devotees. All right, that's the point. So next verse. So who can we bring to you? Next two verses. So you bring to me these people. Tan anayadhvam. Bring to me these people. Asato vimukam mukunda padara vinda makaranda rasa. So those persons who are vimukan is turned away from or averse to, the rasa, honey, the taste, rasa is taste of the honey coming from the lotus feet of the Lord. So of course that honey, the taste of the honey means bhakti yoga. There, Sya Krishna Nama Charitadishita. Krishna's name and character and qualities and rupa and so on is sweet like sugar candy. So it's called makaranda rasa. Of course, we're not tasting it because we have ignorance. But if you keep on taking it, just like the jaundice is cured by the rock candy. So you keep taking this rock candy of Krishna Nam, etc., then you'll be cured. You can taste it. But if you are vimukan means no, I'll not. That's not for me. Asata, you are a non-devotee and you think like this. So then you can be bring me these people. Niskinchanai paramahamsa kulaira sangaira jushta grihe nirayabartmani bhada trishnan. And this honey is jushta, is enjoyed by the Paramahamsa Kulai, the group of Paramahamsas. Niskinchanai, they are having no other possessions other than their relationship with God. A sangai, and they're detached from matter. So they're continuously tasting this makaranda, this honey. So you don't go near them. I've already described that. But these other people, they are grihe narayavartmani bhada trishna. They are bound by thirst. Trishna, they're bound by thirst for the world. I think Prabhupada's purport highlights sex life. That's the main thirst, which is the nirayavartmani. It is a path to hell. Grihe, the house. So the house, of course, is generally used as a symbol of bondage in the Bhagavatam. People enter the house for enjoying. So they're called grihamedi. And Prabhupada quotes many verses here from the second canto Bhagavatam describing that mentality. So he spent some time with that. We'll not spend any time. We know what it is. That grihamedi life is nirayavartmani. That is the path to hell. Their taste take them to one undesirable thing to the next. Andanta gober vishatam tamishram puna punashcharvita charanana. So bring to me these people. Next verse. Jihana Bhakti Bhagava Gunanamadheyam. So there, if the tongue does not chant, the name and qualities of God, okay. Chetas nachasmanati touch charanarvindam. The heart, chetas, the heart or mind, does not remember the lotus feet of the Lord. Krishnaya no namati yachchara ekadapi. And the head, yachchira, does not bow down to nanamati, does not bow down to Krishnaya, means the deity. So here, this is tongue and the body, mind, speech. So the body doesn't bow, the heart does not remember, the tongue does not speak or chant. Ekada api, even once. So this ekada api is supposed to be supplied to each of the categories. So even once the name did not chant, even once the mind did not remember, even once the head did not bow down. Sri Vishwanath says, according to different opinions, this even once can mean once in a day, once in a year, or once in a lifetime. So I guess there are different opinions about what is this even once. It means at least once a day it should have been done. Some, I guess, say like that. Others say at least once in a year it should have been done. And some say at least once in a lifetime. So I guess there's different opinions about that. But the body, mind, and speech is fully dedicated to Maya Shakti, and not even once worshipped God. Then Tan Anayadvam Asato, you bring to me these non-devotees. Akrita Vishnu Kritan, they do not perform duties to Vishnu. They do not do bhakti yoga. So these are the people who you should bring to me. Okay. So the last verse is just him taking responsibility for this mistake, because these were his servants. So he's the master. So when the servants do some mistake, the master takes responsibility for that. The responsible one. So feeling himself responsible for this grave mistake, he asks forgiveness from the Supreme Lord. So he folds his palms and he prays for the Lord's forgiveness. And he also is praying on behalf of the Yamadutas. Oh, my Lord, my servants have already surely committed a great offense by arresting a Vaishnava such as Ajamila. Oh, Narayana, O Supreme and oldest person, please forgive us. Because of our ignorance, we failed to recognize Ajamila as a servant of your lordship. And thus we have certainly committed a great offense. Therefore, with folded hands, we beg your pardon. My Lord, since you are supremely merciful and always full of good qualities, please pardon us. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you. So that's Yamaraj's conversation with the Yamaduta is very nice. This passage, this pastime is all very nice. Okay. So we'll stop here. If anyone wants to say anything, I don't think I see anything in the chat box. Let me ask some question or some comment you want to make. Then.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So the verse 28 was reminding me of Sri Vishwanath talking about those who are Vaishnavas who have taken initiation are saved from hell, like the associating with a.
Mm-hmm.
And it had me thinking, like, what about disciples who are not sincere? They take initiation and then they become attached to family life and worldly enjoyment. Are they still? Would they still be exempt? If they
they're safe.
Offensive,
because Yamaraj just said ekada api, right? Even once, they should have done it at least once. So these guys, they must have did it many times. They were probably chanting 16 rounds. Let's say if they were in ISKCON, they were chanting 16 rounds, maybe for years they were doing. Then they fell away and got into the path of hell. Even they were on the path of hell, they will not go to hell because they at least once did it. That's what Yamaraj said. He said, don't bring me those people. Even one time, they already did it one time. Actually, they did it many times. So don't bring me those people. They are also protected. And here the verse is saying, the verse 28, Ajastram niskincha naiparamaham sukolara samgara jushtat. So this honey of the Lord's lotus feet is continuously enjoyed by the Paramahamsas. So they are Niskanchana. So they are very advanced devotees. They're continuously tasting that nectar. That's why they keep drinking it. Just like eating sweets. Sometimes you want to stop, but you just take one more, just one more, just one more, just one more, just one more. Like that, you can't stop. So these people tasting the sweetness of Krishna, they continuously are drinking that honey. But the sadhakas, they're drinking intermittently. Just like us, we drink a little bit in the morning, and then maybe throughout the day, trying to finish the rounds, we're drinking a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. So we also drink, but we drink intermittently. And if you struggle in your devotional life, that is also intermittent drinking. You drank for 10 years straight, and then for another 10 years straight, you did not drink anything. And then after those 10 years, again, you suffer nicely. Again, you come back, start drinking again. So we are drinking also, but intermittently. So that is okay. I mean, it's okay means if you want the Atma supersedity, then you gotta become an alcoholic, a devotional drunk. If you want the Atma supersedity, so that means the full satisfaction of soul and mind, then you have to become a drunk. But if you're only drinking recreationally or intermittently, then there will be this breakage. Sometimes the breakage happens throughout the day, like in the case of ourselves properly, where we're having some sincerity of trying to practice on a daily basis, but still there's breakage. And for some people, the breakage happens for periods of years at a time. It can happen. So they are also safe. So such as Krishna's, and you can say Bhakti's generosity, as we hear it in the Shastras at least.
Cool, because the reason I ask is my understanding is those who aren't initiated, even if they do it once, like once they become offensive, then they lose those benefits, if I remember correctly. Is what
you don't lose benefit. Everything in bhakti is imperishable. So if you say lost, meaning of lost there means it becomes covered for a period of time. Just like when you have high fever, you can't eat. Even you want to eat, you can't eat. So when people do offenses, they get high fever. So that means the benefit of bhakti yoga they've done is still there. They may even have a little predilection for bhakti, like they still have some sense that they like bhakti, but they can't do it because fever is too high. So even they want to come to the kirtan, somehow they can't come, somehow they can't chant, somehow. That means the fever is high. So it may take some lifetimes also for fever to go down. And then when fever goes down, then gradually you can again eat, right? Gradually you can start with a little bit of, milk, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Gradually you can eat again. So you'll not lose it, but you'll get fever. That's in the case of offenses. And we heard from that long commentary from Sri Vishwanath also. Some people think I don't need guru, or somehow or other they don't get guru in this life. If they think I don't need guru, he said that is a third offense. So he says they don't go to hell for that. He says they have to take birth again until they get guru. And in order to get over that offense, they need to embrace the guru. So if you don't get initiation in this life, since that is an important part of the process of bhakti yoga development, so you take birth again and get guru to get guru. So you don't lose. No one is ever with bhakti.
That's yoga. A little different than what I remembered. I thought like if someone isn't initiated and then they chant, like say recreationally or whatever, and then they become offensive or whatever, then it's possible for them to be punished by Yamaraj.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of remember. Okay, so what I'm talking about is a person who's like a devotee, and he becomes offensive. He's not he's a devotee, but he's not initiated, and he becomes offensive. So I'm speaking of that person. It seems that the person is not a devotee. So in the commentary of Sri Vishwanath, we were hearing about persons who are karmis and gyanis taking bhakti in a subordinate way. So these persons, if they don't do aparad, then that bhakti will support their karma and gyan and give them the fruits of their karma and gyan. so that it will, otherwise without any bhakti will not be successful. But if they become offensive, then bhakti withdraws her generosity, and then these persons can get the results. Oh, why does it keep doing that? So these persons are not devotees. They're doing bhakti as secondary thing. That's how Sri Vishwanath was covering it. So they are not safe. Their chanting of holy name is also offensive, because to think the name to be equal to dharma, etc., is offensive. So if you do it, take it as a lower thing, that is also offensive by nature. But because Shastra is telling like that, and you follow that, okay, bhakti is she's generous. You should get the fruit of your karma and jnana. But then if you become offensive, then you will not get the fruit of your karma and jnana. And if you do sin, then you can go to hell also. So for these people who are not devotees, they're kind of in a little bit of a dangerous position. But if you are a devotee, that means you take Vishnu as the purpose of life, etc. But you're not initiated, and you do aparad. So you're a little, it seems, I guess my understanding now is that you're safe. You are not implicated, because you have faith somehow that God, you have faith in Krishna's Shraddha Makatasu. You have faith in Krishna Katha and all of that. So you are a devotee, but you're not initiated. So if you're not initiated, you're not going to be able to advance to the sadhya, basically. So if
Okay,
you're
cool.
not initiated and you do aparad, then it takes some time. But you will not have to go to hell.
Okay, thank you so much. And then one last thing. Did Sri Vishwanath say which Eka that he subscribes to?
No, he just said, these are different opinions, so take whatever. Sadhus, when they want to scare you, they'll say once in a day. And if they want to be a little bit more lenient, they'll say once in a lifetime. So it depends on mood. Sometimes sadhu wants to make us freak out a little bit, so we get a little bit serious, put a little fire in our butts. They say once every single day. Even if you miss one day, you're in danger. Then sometimes they're being very generous. They may say once in a lifetime. All right. Shangopi says, my takeoff is how Yamaduta's definition of Ajamil changed from Agavan to a great Vaishnava. It's amazing. Ekada, even once. I am remembering Lord Chaitanya gives definition of Vaishnava in 3 ways. As one who constantly chants, one who chants even once, or by singing, whom one is promoted to chant. Yeah, that's a nice thing to remember. Mahaprabhu speaking to the residents of Kulinagram. So they asked him every year, what is the duty of a grihasta? And Mahaprabhu gave answer to do Vaishnav Seva and to constantly do Nam Sankirtan. He said, this is the duty of a grihasta. Constant Nam Sankirtan and Vaishnav Seva. So for householders, there's no other dharma for you really as a devotee than these 2 things. You should host Sankirtan parties, so to speak, and you do Vaishnav Seva. So then they asked, well, who's a Vaishnava? So one year Mahaprabhu gave one answer, next year another answer, third year another answer. So this is a very nice thing to remember. Okay, anything else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yeah, just elaborating on this term, learned Brahmana. So I always think, it's almost like an oxymoron to think of a learned Brahmana who doesn't understand the purpose of the Shastras. So when we say learned Brahmana, who doesn't know the purpose, their learning is of rituals that will gain one sense gratification or impersonal liberation. This is their learning.
Yes.
Oh.
Not even impersonal liberation. The learning here is of the 3 Vedas. That's what they're saying. Because the word was used, Trayam Jati Kirtamati. So they're learning in 3 Vedas. So 3 Vedas means the part of the Vedas that deal with Vedic ritual usually for obtaining Swargaloka or other sort of material happinesses in this world. So Krishna speaks about them also as Bhogaishwarya Prasaktanam, Tayab Aprahita Chetasam. They're interested in Bhoga and Aishwarya, and their consciousness is stolen by those topics in the Shastra. They get absorbed in that. So they never get interested in the topics beyond the three Vedas, which means the Upanishads. So they are still learned in a certain sense because they know these rituals. And ideally, Atato Brahma Jignasa, right? This is the first sutra of Vedanta Sutra, right? So Vedanta Sutra is called as Uttara Mimamsa. And there's Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa. Purva means the previous section, or Uttara Mimamsa is the, remaining section. So Purva Mimamsa deals with like karmic rights and injunctions. So Atataha means, so after you've studied Purva Mimamsa, now do Brahma Jignasa. And the way Jiva Goswami talks about it, I was just reading this yesterday, interestingly. The way Jiva Goswami talks about it is that the reason it is helpful to know Purva Mimamsa before studying Vedanta Sutra is because the statements of the Purva Mimamsa will be the Purva Paksha, or the doubts and the counter argument for which the Vedanta Sutra will be supplying the conclusion. In other words, people are into material life, and when you say spiritual life, they have so many doubts, and they will give doubts from Purva Mimamsa, basically. So then Vedanta Sutra will remove those doubts and establish a conclusion. So anyway, I'm saying all this to say that generally you study Purva Mimamsa before studying the Uttara Mimamsa. Before there's deep interest in Brahma Jignasa, there's interest in the material world and how to do that nicely. So the people who do that nicely, they're called as learned, right? Even today, right? They give TED Talks, they have YouTube channels, and people subscribe to them in the millions. They make a lot of money. Even today, if someone is very good at how to exist in this world, they are called as learned. Right? Of course, these Brahmanas are learned from the Vedas, so they really know something about this world because they take help from God. But they don't know the transcendental Dharma. So that is not so much a fault, because that Dharma is itself a very secret thing. It is not a very easy thing to ascertain. Even Lord Brahma himself. Yeah, I'm looking at this verse. This is from 2nd Canto, chapter 2, verse 34. Bhagavan Brahma Karshnena Tadira Anviksha Manishaya. Tadadhyas Yat Kutasto Ratir Atman Yatobhavet. This is a nice verse. This is 2:34. So here it said, Lord Brahma himself scrutinizingly and with great attention studied the three Vedas 3 times. And after scrutinizingly examining them, he ascertained that Reti, Bhav Bhakti, for the Lord is the highest perfection. So I'm pretty sure this is described in the Bhakti Sandarbha. I'll have to double check that, and my Bhakti Sandarbha is on the way. Really excited about that. But if he studied one time, he came to the conclusion of karma. Then he studied second time, then he came to the conclusion of Gan. Then finally, third time he studied, he said, no, Rati. So even Brahma had to do this work of like a student studying Vedas many times. And first 2 times he came to the wrong conclusion, at least as far as the Bhagavad is concerned. Then third time he came to the right mark. So it is not so much a fault that these learned Brahmanas don't know. It's just it is a secret thing. So we also heard that yesterday, that this Bhagavad Dharma is a secret thing, not so people can easily miss it.
And so you cannot, I think you were saying before that is actually like not possible to understand the real purpose of the Vedas, the transcendental purpose, unless you hear from a devotee, because just studying the Vedas alone without that help from a devotee, it's not possible, isn't it?
Yes, that's what Brahma's prayer we heard today. Atapite deva padambuja dvaya prashadalesha anugrinita evahi. Janati tatvam bhagavam mahimno nachanya eko picharam vichanvan. This is a famous verse from Brahma Stuti to Krishna. So he says there, you need prashadalesha, a drop, at least a drop of prasad, mercy of the Lord, in order to understand his glories. Otherwise, you study Vedas even for hundreds of years, you'll not get it.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you.
I think for devotees, we don't, if this is all true, and we'll take for granted that we all think that this is the truth, it is very hard to conceive how greatly fortunate we are. Because now we are hearing like this regularly. So it has become standard for us. It becomes less of a miracle because we're hearing every day glories of God. But actually, we are the fortune that's been bestowed upon our life. Even right now, we may be all sorts of nonsense as far as we're concerned. And there's some truth to that in our humility. But we are also extremely fortunate. And it's actually, I think it's impossible to conceive of the great generosity that has been given to us in the form of being able to hear like a little bit from Srimad Bhagavatam every day and associate with devotees. It's basically impossible to conceive of this generosity, what it is. It becomes a little bit normal, but it is a very special thing. Therefore, we should offer praise daily to Guru, to sadhus, and to God as an offering of gratitude, because we can't even conceive of the fortune that we have actually. Okay, so we'll stop here for today, and we'll finish the chapter tomorrow. Hari Om Tat Sat. Thanks a lot. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Shri Guru Gaudiya Bharga Ki Jai. Gaudiya Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.